Project Tribute Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to aiding our nation's first responders. Our vision and mission is to enhance the life-saving capabilities of our first responders through raising awareness and funding for the life-saving work that they do. Our goal with the podcast is to be an educational avenue and a method for our heroes to express themselves. In the podcast, we will discuss various tough subjects. Some of the subjects may be uncomfortable or controversial. Our guests have the right to share their thoughts and ideas, and for our listeners to hear the unedited words of our guests. The Foundation's role is to showcase a diverse array of thoughts and opinions within the first responder community. If you hear something that you do not agree with, please consider reaching out to us at projecttributefoundation@gmail.com and join our podcast. If you're a first responder and you would like to share your story, we truly would love to hear from you and learn from your experiences. Please enjoy this week's show, and as always, like, comment, and share to help us grow. You can find more information at www.projecttribute.com. Thanks and have a great one. Hey guys, so John Beckloff with the Project Tribute Foundation. Wanted to try something a little bit different. We fielded a lot of questions over just a short period and wanted to just take some time to answer those questions and reintroduce ourselves. We're wrapping up our first year and thought this would be a great time to gather all the questions that we've seen through our social media and just being in front of people. And I've kind of written some of those questions down. I've got a social media post going right now. So you may see me checking my phone if I see a question come through. But the whole idea is to spend a little bit of time talking about what the foundation is, who I am, and try to answer the common questions we've come across. If you're seeing this on YouTube or you're hearing us on a podcast, take a second and go to our Facebook page, and you can go, and this will post on all of our social media accounts. And if you'll just go, if there's questions we didn't answer, just go ask, and we'll just respond right there on the feed. That helps us really understand what is it that you all are looking for to know out of a foundation that you trust, and how do we gain your trust when we can't be face-to-face with you. So that's kind of the goal. Just going to dive in, spend a little bit of time on the foundation for this week's podcast and our YouTube channel. Again, if you go on a podcast, you can search just about any of the podcast sites. And it's just Project Tribute Foundation. Same thing, YouTube. If you go YouTube, Project Tribute Foundation, you will find us. And then our Facebook page, Project Tribute Foundation, pretty straightforward. And then our website's projecttribute.com. So we'll dive in. So the very first question is, when did the foundation start? So in December of last year, so December 2020, I basically was part of another foundation that served only the local police department. And I really saw a need for bigger and wanted to really hit more departments, but in a focused manner. And so that's kind of where in December, I got together with several first responders that, they were definitely the go-getters that I recognized and people that I've come across and really, respected and learned a lot about over a short period. And some of them said, hey, I've got another person that I know. And so we got together, and one of the requirements to apply for a 501c3 is you have to have a vice president, you have to have a treasurer, and you have to have a secretary. So we gathered folks together. We kind of talked about it. We created the bylaws, used a lot of, there's a lot of really great websites out there. And, you just type in 501c3 startup and lots of resources, or just a nonprofit. At the time, I happened to be going through my MBA, and I've completed it since then. So a fun question that I get asked, so you have an MBA, what's it in? Well, an MBA is a Master's of Business Administration. So I have a Master's in Business. And I got that here at Southeastern Oklahoma State University. But one of the great classes I took, there was one on strategic communication and one on crisis communication. And each of those communication segments talked about nonprofits. So used a lot of the resources given as just part of the coursework to really dive in and build a strategic plan and build a communication plan and try to develop what was a dream of mine of how do I serve our first responders and do this in a way that really I'm passionate about. And so I had the Jeep, and that's another common misconception is that the Jeep I can show it, but I have a Jeep that's decked out in a flag and it's got the name Tribute on it. And on the back windows for a couple of years now, I have posted the names of the prior years in the line of duty deaths. So in February, coming, 2 months from now, February 2022, I'll go to the local place that I use, Highwaymen Signs, and I'll type up the list of every police, fire, EMS, canine, and military from their respective lists and put them on a single list and take that to Highwayman Signs, double check the spelling, double check all the titles. The firefighters are the interesting ones because you all are like Smokey the Bandit, Jeff Smith. It's just, you know, the military and police are very straightforward, officer so and so, but not the fire guys, and that's pretty indicative of what I deal with when anytime we start a text chain or anything like that with the fire guys. It's colorful, but we take that list and have them put it on the Jeep, and so then I'll spend the next year driving around with the tribute Jeep with the names of the prior years in the line of duty deaths. And one of the things that would happen is I would be roadside and people would see the Jeep and I would just be roadside or at a gas station and have this conversation and talk to people and let them know, did you realize that we lost more police officers in the line of duty than we lost in the military? We're in multiple conflicts across the globe, or we were, and we're losing more police than we are military. And then we started seeing the firefighter deaths really tick off when COVID hit, and the fire and paramedics are, on my list, they kind of get lumped in the same because they're similar branches. And so wanted to figure out, how do we pay tribute and how do we make an impact? And people would ask me, hey, how do I donate to you? I'm just a guy with a Jeep. I don't know. So after spent a couple of years with the foundation I was on prior to that, I decided, let's do something that I can really put my efforts towards what the Jeep stands for. And the Jeep's name was Tribute. So then it just made sense. Okay, we're going to name the foundation Project Tribute. So made the website, bought the web domain, and then put out a copyright, all those things. And the copyright actually it's almost complete. It went through the 30-day, I don't know, contesting. There's probably a better word for that. So it's really in the first year, it's just getting everything set up. And I'm still like, I've got a friend that they're connecting me with a lawyer. That way I can have a lawyer tell me, hey, you set it up, but you did this wrong, because I'm sure it's going to happen. So went through and used all the online resources, used my class resources, and filled out all the paperwork, the articles of incorporation, and applied for the 501c3 and all the things required to have an official nonprofit. And then just kind of got to work and started working with some folks. Had a wonderful friend that he built the website for us for free, kind of the initial website. And then we utilized another organization and they built a different website. And then it's the backbone of what we're using currently. And just kind of slowly spent December, January through March, really building the foundation. We hadn't done any work. And the very first thing that happened was we had locally a officer that died in line of duty. And that day, another wonderful organization called Running for Heroes that I've been watching since the startup. I think they're a year ahead, maybe 2 years ahead of where we're at, which is exciting because they're really doing some impact. And so we did a run at the same. So this young man Zachariah does a run where he runs around his school 1 mile for every first responder that passes in the line of duty. And they'll do a post and they'll Facebook Live it. And so we joined at the same time that he was running at his location. We had Bartlesville Police and fire and families. And I mean, we held a run. And it wasn't a fundraiser. It was just a run just to honor Kyle Davis and the sacrifice he made and the hardship that his family's going through. And that right before going to the event, I received notification that we had received our 501c3. And that was kind of one of many moments that just kind of made everything make sense and say, yep, we're heading the right direction. One of those things where I just feel it. I feel that this is going to be something big. And when I meet with other board members, it's, I understand today we're this, but you need to be making decisions today that make sure we can, 5 years from now when we're, have a massive headquarters and we're able to really make an impact, that decision today allows for that future growth. So that's where I'm mentally is how do we today get to something bigger to where we're hitting multiple states and saving lives of first responders and civilians, and really getting some big bucks. That way we can help our departments. So, March, we got our 501c3 and then really started. That's when I applied for the Facebook fundraiser. If you're not familiar, Facebook fundraiser, actually, you have to submit to them all the paperwork, and 100% of the money put on Facebook through their fundraiser gets to the or to the nonprofit. So that was something I didn't realize. All the other fundraisers, that doesn't happen. So if you PayPal us, PayPal takes a cut. If you Venmo us, Venmo takes a cut. If you GoFundMe, honestly, don't do that, because then whoever you're GoFunding the government's gonna take a huge chunk of the money. But Facebook gives us 100%. If you give them $20, they're gonna give us $20. The only thing about Facebook is they pay out in lumps, and so if multiple people pay in $20, I'm gonna get told, hey, here's $300. I'm not gonna be told John Smith gave you 20, and this one gave you 20, and this one gave you 20. So that's the only downside, is that it makes it harder for us to specifically say thank you, unless somebody were to tell us, hey, I donated, or there's a couple of fundraisers I can see, and there's quite a few that I can't. Like I got a payment remittance the other day, and I thank you. I don't know what it's for, but I know that it's a donation, and our commitment is that 100% of donations get spent towards life saving and towards our first responders. So it's easy for me. I just need to know, is it donation or is it shared income? And so we do it that way. Started kind of the idea March, April, May of doing shirts. One of the issues I always found is there's companies out there, and I am not a first responder. I didn't serve. I am just a guy that learned how to be a business. I did restaurants and not traditional food service methods. So one of the issues I see is that there's not a lot of clothing out there for just the general civilian. Even the thin blue line flags, a lot of times you'll see it on the arm, or the crossed rifles on the arm. And so if I wear that, especially with my tattoos, people are like, hey, thanks for your service. I'm like, oh, no, don't do that. And so I'm very particular, and that showed me as well that there's a niche out there. That's where the shirts are coming in, is we're trying to figure out shirts that the general civilian can wear, and primarily females have been, or women, I don't know if females is the proper term anymore, but women have been the mainstay purchasers of our items. And that's really what we're after, is we're not after the first responder and their spouse. We're after their mother or their grandmother or their neighbor, somebody that wants to show, hey, that person, I see you. I see that you're out there daily and serving the community, and I wanted you to see that I support you. So that's kind of where the clothing line is focused and going towards. We just actually, I talked with a group over at one of the EMS stations about kind of helping form our first committee. We got to figure out the name, but basically clothing committee, and we will vote that into realization in next week, actually, our next board meeting. So launch the shirts, website's going, and then really spent a lot of time. Facebook took several months. Setting up PayPal and Venmo and all those things, because you have to submit paperwork, and I have to show I'm legitimate. And so a lot of that took just a lot of time. So the first fundraiser we did was tourniquets. And if you're not familiar, a tourniquet it's just a fancy belt that, I don't know how loud that's gonna be on the microphone, but it's just it's a blood loss stopping device that's you use to cinch off a wound. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to put it around my arm, and you can see just one-handed. You tighten it, you Velcro it, and then there's this bar here, and one of our friends told me what the bar's name is, and I don't know anymore, so I apologize, and tighten it up. And then the whole purpose of the tourniquet is to stop blood flow to whichever extremity is hurt and bleeding out. So that was just a real simple sorry, listeners, first item that we started fundraising for was to put tourniquets on officers. And the reason being is I happened to just, in the midst of all this, watch a documentary on one of the school shootings, and a lot of the kids didn't die immediately from the gunshot wound. They bled out over 20, 30 minutes, and had they had more tourniquets at the site, they could have, even if each classroom had one tourniquet, somebody could have run out there, cinched off the wound, and bought a little bit more time for those students. Or, and we see this in first responders as well. And more often than not, I've heard motorcycle and car wrecks being, tourniquets being applied as well. So it's just kind of a low hanging fruit. The first round of tourniquets we were using, it was 60, I think, call it $67 to do a holster and a tourniquet. Those were good. Still have them on our Amazon page. That, if you're not familiar, it's kind of like a bridal registry where we've put it on there, and you can click, our wish list, click both the tourniquet and a holster, and instead of you having it shipped to you, you can have it shipped to our address, the wish list address, and then they come to our post office box. So that was our very first fundraiser, and we had just shy of 100 tourniquets that came in that method. Additionally, we had several big donors, and we were able to buy. At this point, we've outfitted all that we know of Bartlesville Police and Washington County Sheriffs, Pawnee County Sheriffs, and several other organizations around us. And it was just through just kind of an idea that, I brought it to our first responders and talked with our board, and they all said, yeah, this makes sense. And so that's been a fascinating item that is needed. And everyone, when we started doing it, I would go up to people and say, hey, do you have a tourniquet? And they would, yeah. And they would open it up, and most of them would just absolutely shred because they were 20 years old or 10 years old. My favorite one was one of the gentlemen said, yep, I brought mine back from the Army. And he said, sure enough, he opened it up and it just shredded to pieces. And it's like, all right, let's get you better gear. So that was kind of where we started, was tourniquets, and we then grew to a cheaper tourniquet through Recon Medical, not cheaper quality, just cheaper price. And the first tourniquet and holster, the $66 one, they were running out of supplies. Probably due to COVID, we couldn't get the holster in. So I had to try to find another one. And so that's where Recon Medical came in. And even on their end, I reached out and said, hey, I need to make a pretty big order for all of our requests in December. And right now they can't fulfill it. So if you've put a request into me, I've got it. And, that's one of the big things is, if you are asking for funding, go onto our website, projecttribute.com. And before I lie to you, let me click the right buttons here. So it's the Get Funding tab. You go in there and fill out the form, and we've got it logged. Feel free to reach out and say, hey, did you get it? And so the how this works is, as we have funds, we go and go down our list and say who asked first and what can we fund. So far, the only one that I'm just struggling with, and if you're listening and you want to help, Tuttle, Oklahoma has asked for 2 ballistic shields, and they asked really when we had just started. So if you're from Tuttle, you're on my list. But I think it's about a $4,000, $5,000 investment. And so the hard part is, I can give 2 items to Tuttle for $5,000, or I think I've got 6 different departments right now asking for the blood loss kits and tourniquets for $5,000. So I need about $10,000 to meet all the requests that have come in. And that's just kind of the challenge. And it's a good challenge to have, is that we have people asking us for things. Had a gentleman out in Georgia send us a message asking for tourniquets. So I'll fulfill every request we get. It's just a matter of, having money in the bank account and having suppliers have where they can send me things that I can send out. So it does take a little bit of time, but if you've put in a request, I'll fill it. Just try to figure it out. How long it takes me is the only question I don't know. Even had several firefighters reach out, and one's asked for a kind of a rope harness kit, and the other one, I have no idea what they were saying. And that's where it's important to fill it out for me in the Get Funding. That way I can take it to my board and my first responders on the advisory board and say, okay, what is this? Is this life-saving? Does this meet our criteria? And we go. So that's the only thing that the biggest thing, like, what do you do? That was another question. So when did the foundation start? December 2022. We are a 501c3. I did file the Easy 970, I think it is, in December, because we technically were formed December 2020, but all of our numbers for 2020 will be 0. And then this will be our first year when we file this next tax season to actually have any data. And what do? We fundraise for anything that will save a life. And that really, it's going to be a first responder saying, hey, we need this item. If they have no idea, which has kind of been the case lately, that we really could just use tourniquets or the stop bleed kits or blowout kits, I think is what they were calling them. So we'll fundraise for those too, but anything that will save a life. And we will not send money. If we're getting a request for tourniquets, I'm sending tourniquets. I kind of like, you guys don't know me, I don't know you, and so I don't believe in giving somebody money for gas. I'll put gas in your tank. And that's the same approach that we're going to take with the foundation. It's all about transparency. If you're listening and you're wanting to donate, you don't want me just to go hand out money to people I've never met, I don't know, and I'm not sure if they're going to buy what they're supposed to buy. But you will donate to me if I can prove to you that your money is for tourniquets. I'm buying tourniquets. Here's a photo of that tourniquet going to this officer or this first responder. So that's the main reason of why we won't hand money. I can't see a need ever for us to hand over funds. If somebody's going to training, it's going to be, I'll pay for the training. I will call that place and figure out how do we pay for it and get your name on it. That way, again, I have no intention of just handing over cash to anybody. It just, again, transparency is important to me. If I'm going to run a foundation, I want to make sure that at any point somebody can say, "Hey, where did this go?" And I don't, I may not fully understand the question, but I'll open the books for you and we can dive in together. We'll do a Zoom call and screen share and let you dive through whatever you want to dive through. If that helps you know we're real and the money's going where we say it's going to go. We have on our website a counter, and the counter shows how many dollars have been donated versus how many dollars we have put out in the field. And the variance, John, you said, again, let's click the website and see what it says. So at the time that I did this, we had $14,077.78 donated, and we have put into the field $22,414.16. So where the difference is the shirt revenue. Currently, we have no paid staff. We're all volunteers. It's late at night, and I got done with my day job late. And so the shirt sales and the profit, for lack of better terms, and if you're listening, I did air quotes. I don't know if you can hear the air quotes. But the profit of the shirts is everything that we're putting into the field that we possibly can. We do have a couple items that cost. Just recently bought a better microphone, so when Jared does podcast, he can sound more professional. And then we have the websites, the various websites like our www.projecttribute.com. I feel like it's, I don't know, $10 a month, and so that's one shirt pays for that. So we have very minimal overhead, but the overhead we do have, we're going to fundraise through the shirts, or I will pay for it through donations meant for operational costs. Like somebody's going to, hey, can you help me fund rent for an office? Yes. So that's the only time I will use a donation if it's specifically for operational cost. Other than that, it's going to be towards life saving. So another common question is about me. So I'm an Okie. I lived a very short portion of my childhood as a baby in Texas, but the rest of my life has been spent in Oklahoma, with a short stint in Albuquerque whenever I got out of college. So bachelor's degree in hotel restaurant administration from Oklahoma State University. Go Pokes. And then I recently completed my MBA from Southeastern Oklahoma State University. Work-wise, I have worked in restaurants pretty well most of my career. In my first job with my current company, I opened lots of little small franchises or developed small restaurants in a kind of a food court atmosphere, and then worked in corporate world and in the K-12 world as well, but all food service, multi-site operations, multiple staff. So pretty big size. That's my background, is really just running businesses, and pretty passionate about it. But I would say that it's definitely in today's climate, it is incredibly tough. And I've found myself really passionate about this foundation and the potential within this foundation, and especially with the board that I have, plus the new board members coming on board. 2022 is going to be an exciting year. And with you all's help to help us grow and share that we exist, it really we could be self-sustaining within the next year to 5 years, with not a ton of anything magical other than people just knowing we exist and that we're real. What areas do we serve is another common one. Hey, I got this just the other day that I know we're not in Washington County, but we're on the edge. Will you help us? So every first responder within the United States, we will help. I will not turn down somebody. If it makes sense, if we can afford it, we'll do it. The focus, though, is on the small town rural departments, and that's a really hard word to say for me in my Okie. But it really is the volunteer fire or the police departments that have 30 officers or less. That's what we're focusing on. And really the reason being is the bigger cities have foundations. Like Tulsa has a fantastic Tulsa Police Department foundation where they yield. I mean, I'm not going to say millions, but it's they make some good money to support them. But it's a big department. It takes a lot. That's not our focus. Our focus really is the smaller departments that, the small farm towns and the volunteer fire and the volunteer EMS and those. That's who I want to get geared towards because those folks have day jobs and they're using their day job income for saving their neighbors. Let us do that for you and let's make the fundraising part our day jobs. That way we can really help you help your community and your town and really enjoy what you do without having to go and fill the boots and all those things. And to get a fire truck, we'll hopefully we get big enough where we're buying fire trucks. Who gets paid from the foundation is another common one. Nobody. It is volunteer. None of the board members in our bylaws, none of the board members can get paid. And we're years away from having paid staff. And again, that's going to be paid through the shirt sales, or if somebody were to specifically donate for payroll, which I can't fathom that ever happening, it might. And grants could be to help cover operational costs. It depending on the nature of the grant. Let's see here. Are you just police? No, we will. Any first responder, military included. Military is really hard right now, trying to figure out, especially in this in between. So any first responder and military, anybody that we could save a life, I'm 100% game to do it. It's just that first responders is kind of our first focus. We've done a lot of work with the police department. Part of it's because that's where I started. I came from a police department foundation. It was connections I had already made, and so it was a great way for me to cut my teeth in this foundation and start proving myself. Also, if you look at the deaths, there's more police officers getting killed, especially, I mean, this month has been a tragic month for police departments across the United States. So that's where we will put probably more of our effort towards police departments just overall, because that's where the majority of the deaths are happening and the more opportunities for better training and better tools and that kind of stuff. But any first responder and any way that we could save a life is going to be within our scope. Our scope is saving a life, period. If that can be justified, then it doesn't matter what uniform or shirt you wear. We'll try to help. How do you fund things? It's basically we take all the various donations and we will pay for it. Or if somebody doesn't want to give us a donation, they can go buy the item themselves. So try to really. There's so many different ways out there to make a purchase and to either make the purchase, hand over money. Eventually, when we start trying to do events, getting volunteers to come help. Another way, if you don't want to spend a dime but you want to help, just share. Click that like, share on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Algorithm wise, as people keep liking and asking their friends to like, and maybe you don't have the funds to donate, but you may know somebody, put us across their desk. And that's really, I mean, I had a wonderful email the other day of a company that they're just putting a jar on right next to the register for us. And we talked through how they can get the cash to where it needs to go and those things. So there's lots of, money wise to help. And we definitely need, I can't buy tourniquets if I don't have money to buy tourniquets. But if you aren't able to donate, spreading the word and helping us grow our network is just as important, especially right now. One of my short-term goals is to have 5,000 followers on Facebook by the end of this month. We're at 4,400. So help us reach that goal. Help us reach the goal of 600 followers on our Facebook page. Why tourniquets? I think it was just one of those moments, kind of like the day that we got our 501c3, that it's just lots of these little moments have happened that just a magical light bulb. I mean, you can call it divine intervention, whatever you want, but all these little things have really played out, and tourniquets happen to be one of them. And we've put just about 20 grand of tourniquets back into the field. So it, I've not come across a tourniquet prior to fundraising for them, so I can't truly answer that question. Except it was a field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. Some Jiminy Cricket whispering in my ear. This one comes often, and it's more on the negative comments about we're doing this to help the police and not pay taxes. That's not true. We are a nonprofit, but we are not a non-taxable organization. So the shirt sales every month, I pay taxes to the state of Oklahoma, like all the various taxes. And so then we're working with an accountant at the end of to pay the federal taxes and all that stuff. But right now, the tax is just going to be on the shirt sales, pretty minimal on everything else because we don't have payroll. We don't have, and really, we're probably going to get a refund because we've paid taxes on buying the shirt from the vendor, plus collected taxes and paid taxes then. So another one of those, I probably did it wrong, but we are paying taxes. So we don't get a cut. The only difference is if you donate, you get to do a tax deduction for donating to us. Frequently we get compared to churches because churches don't pay taxes. Not a church. Not a church. So we pay taxes. Let's see here. What successes have you had? Really, the biggest thing is the growth and having people recognize we're real and we really are here to help. And having a first responder say, "Could you help me?" If you knew anything about first responders, that doesn't happen. I mean, they like gear, but I'm not handing out flashy gear. I'm handing out tourniquets and support, and that's a huge success to me that we've hit the entire Bartlesville community, the entire Dewey community, Caney, Kansas. I mean, we have hit several communities in our very short term, and I would call that a success. But the bigger success is the networking and having the launch of all the different ways to collect donation in our first year, plus our YouTube channel and our podcast and all those, and the ability to grow and getting that strong foundation put together. That's to me a massive success, as well as just me personally. This thing is growing and it's growing quickly, and it's exciting to me to see what was an idea on my Jeep and a question being asked frequently of, how can I donate, and me going, I don't know, hell, I just want to be roadside to make sure this first responders family knows somebody gave a shit. And so to see from that and the I don't know into here's how, and here's an hour's worth of information on how to. So I think that that's exciting, and I would call that a success. Short-term goals, the next year. So this year we're probably going to end right around $25,000 of. I'm sorry, we're going to end. I'm hoping around $16,000 of donations and around $25,000 to $26,000 donated back into the field. So just about, I mean, that's going to be 200 and something percent of items donated, of donations being utilized. So the goal for next year is there's no reason we shouldn't have $100,000 earned either through donations, grants, or shirts. I'd like to do an event a month, even if it's something as simple as doing a drawing or one of the things is we've been offered to raffle off items. I struggle with raffling off a gun because our focus is life saving. So we're looking at maybe we buy a ballistic shield and raffle it off and do something like that. Also, another short-term goal is just keep growing the social media. And if you're listening still 30 minutes in, help us, like the post, share the post, and really encourage and engage your friends to do the same. We cannot continue to grow without help and without people interacting with the posts. If you come across one of our posts, even just hitting the like button, it helps us on Facebook's algorithm. And then if you'll like it and go comment, even if the comment's something simple as thank you for being here or just thank you, Again, the more interaction in post and the more total interactions we have, the more Facebook puts us in front of other people. So that's where really getting you all's help will help us grow and expand. And the more we grow and the more visual we are, the more first responders we can hit, and as well as the more civilians we can hit. Um, Another really big long-term goal is to be self-sustaining. I'd like us to have staff on hand and really have people dedicated. Currently, it's managing the day job and this, and that's a lot. And I don't like a first responder waiting a couple hours to find out if they got my email or not, but that's the reality. I can't really deal with the foundation until the evening. And so then I come back, and like today, it's 9:30 and filming. And then we auto post, and I spend a lot of the weekend going through and building the post for the week. That way, during my workday, things are posting, but I'm not touching it. So the self sustaining financially would be a great one, especially on having the shirts pay for themselves. We are probably within a year or two going to need an office space. We're officing out of my house, and with 4 shirts, this room is full, and so I'd like to get more shirts than that. Uh, Frequently, we get asked for I would like a kid's shirt, or I'd love to do that as well. And we have the funds on the shirt side of it to do it. I just don't have the space to store extra shirts. And so we're going to, in the next year or two, outgrow what we currently have and need to pay for something bigger. And then the staff, the big staff that I want to have on hand is a designer, a grant writer. If you do those things and you're interested in helping and volunteer, you can write off, do a tax write off of your time. We could definitely use that. But also eventually get to where we have a paid designer and a paid grant writer and a paid counselor. The peer support network is something we really want to focus and dive in and figure out how do we connect services or learn about services that already exist and pay for people to get to them. It may be something as simple as it exists, but you got to fly to them. Great, I'll pay for an airline ticket. So those are the long term goals: is building the network of help and really getting not just the single donations, but getting yearly commitments. Or even if you're listening and you're willing to do a $10 a month PayPal or $10 a month Venmo. We've got a young lady in Dewey, Oklahoma that she sends $50 every month, and amazing to her. Thank you. Those are the things that keep us sustained and help us continue to buy. I mean, $50 is 2 tourniquets on with our new pricing. So, why is this important to me? So personally, to me, this is important because we live in a world where we all have to mind what we say, watch what we do, and dance and play the game. If a first responder reaches out to us, they didn't need anybody's permission. I don't have to ask anybody's permission other than my board. And we fulfill the need. There's no politics, there's no drama, there's no anything. It is straight help. It is a challenge nowadays to navigate poor leadership and office politics and all the garbage that people nowadays lack the capability to manage and the capability to call things what they are. I struggle with that. I struggle with looking at subpar and walking away from it, or just being able to speak, hey, this isn't right, or you're not a good person. It is not something I want to deal with anymore. It's not something I have the capability to do anymore. It really is refreshing that when I'm talking with my board or talking with somebody that likes or dislikes what we do, to be pretty direct with them. This is what we do. I'm unapologetic about it. Our first responders saw, I posted on my private Facebook page a interaction with somebody, and some of my board said, I don't like that. And the flip side, though, is, we live in a world where people get silenced that are trying to do the right thing because of the people doing the wrong thing that are happen to be in power. I'm not doing that. As we continue to grow, I want all of our potential employees to have the ability to speak and to make change. Just like when we have no staff and we're going to call a spade and we're going to hold our board and myself accountable, and the ability to directly serve with no garbage, no bullshit, no politics into it. That's where I want to be as an organization. If we have 500 employees or 500,000 employees, I want the organization as a whole to be better than organizations that exist today. Organizations today, it is this 1990s era management style of, whoever's meaner wins, or whoever can get more dirt, or any of that garbage, versus just don't suck as a human being and be a good leader. So that's why this is important to me, is that we can rewrite the book and we can save lives, and we can, I get to run an organization based on how I believe, and use my experience to the maximum, versus dealing with politics and any of the drama and the garbage, and poor leadership that we see out in the world. Um, we're able to say yes, we're able to say no, we're able to say, hey, you suck at life. So that's where this is exciting to me, is that we can make an impact in a pure manner, that just negates all the garbage and all the hate and negativity out there. It's one of those things where, another question I get asked frequently, and it's do you dive into politics, or the attempt to dive into politics? No, we won't. The Jeep has one sticker that's maybe political, saying I stand for the flag. And then it's got the names of all the in the line of duty deaths. It's got two different stickers that will stay on there, one for Kyle Davis and one for the Dallas Five. And it's a flag. There will not be any political post or anything like that through the foundation, or stickers on the Jeep, because I'm not taking political sides in our board. And we've all kind of agreed we're not going to take political sides. Privately, yeah, we have our opinions, but the foundation's bigger than that. It's bigger than all of that, the garbage. I want to support all of our officers. One of the ideas that we're looking at doing is, whenever it comes to and I apologize if I screw this up, but the LGBTQ plus community, we have first responders that they represent their community. So Black History Month, or Hispanic History Month, or trying to do a shirt that represents those organizations or those communities. That way we can celebrate all of our first responders. That's our goal, is we want to be inclusive and really support each other. But on the flip side, if somebody's not going to be inclusive and not going to be supportive, go away. I'm not interested. And that's where this becomes important to me, is the ability to say, thanks, see you later. Somebody on this is going to be mad that I said LGBTQ plus, or that I said it wrong. And if I did, I apologize. But I don't care. I want to save a life, and I want to dedicate the foundation towards supporting our first responders. If you don't like that, cool. Find a different podcast, find a different foundation, find a organization that you feel meets your needs. That's it. So that's why this is important to me, is it's the ability to unapologetically support our first responders, and do it in the most effective, no bullshit way that we possibly can. Challenges that I faced. That's another really good one. We've come across a lot of frauds, and again, it goes back to having to call a spade a spade. Really, I've seen this more often than I care for at this point. Yeah, I'll take care of it, and then a little bit later, here's your bill. Well, what happened to helping versus billing? So we've had to say, okay, fine, moving forward, if anyone promises to do something, put it in writing. Here's a form for you. Additionally, it's just gaining the trust. The first responders are taken advantage of. We saw in Tulsa, there was a group that came through putting out a shirt for Sergeant Craig Johnson, and they said all of the proceeds are going to go towards the family. Immediately, the Tulsa Police Union, and I think their foundation and a few others, immediately got on there saying, do not do this. This is fraudulent. And so that's where that slow growth for me of going to first responders and standing in front of them and handing them things, and opening the books if need be. Also having first responders on the board, and having, we start with their connections. That way they can say, no, this is real. So a huge challenge to me has been the frauds out there, the people that are collecting donations and burning, potential donors without actually doing the work. So that's where that transparency, and if we hand out a tourniquet, if you're asking for things, I'm going to ask, the only thing I'm asking from you is a photo, and I'm going to be pretty particular about getting that photo. There's a gentleman that I started sending daily emails. I just need a photo, please. But it's for transparency. If you guys give us money for things, I want you seeing that your money went out there. So that's been a big challenge as we continue to grow. How do I provide transparency when we're hitting other states. I can't go take the Jeep because it's a Jeep. It's probably going to break down. But the how do we show transparency when we start hitting these other states and we continue to grow? That's going to be a really big future challenge. But and then the current challenge is just proving myself, since I am the face of this, and proving the foundation's real and continue to grow. So I think that that's the biggest challenge, is just showing people we're real and that we mean it and pretty unapologetic about it, and that we're going to do what we say. An example is we had a challenge where we almost didn't hit a podcast. We said every Friday at 8 p.m. we're putting podcast out. So Thursday night at 10 o'clock, filming a podcast. That way we can make sure that something's going out there every night. And then how can someone help? The biggest thing, obviously, there's donating. We're a nonprofit. Our funding is coming from donations. So if you're looking for a tax deduction, or your company does company matches, we are a 501c3. I'll give you whatever paperwork you need. Even if you're like, man, I don't trust you, just show me your bank account. Cool, will do. Whatever you need that will make you comfortable with supporting us and aiding us and supporting our first responders, all in. Also, if you all happen to come across a grant, or your company matches, or any of those things, you just email us and let us know, hey, this is something you should look into. There's directly donating through the various different donation methods. You can even just mail a check, P.O. Box 1318, Bartlesville, Oklahoma. And then the really big one right now is just helping spread the word that we exist. If you happen to buy any of our gear, taking a photo of you in the gear and tagging us is huge. If you bought the gear, you can also go on our website and give us a review, because people, especially with us charging $25 for a t-shirt, they want to know that it's quality. And so that's where, if people go by word of mouth, if you're listening to this still, 40 minutes into this, help us spread the word by using your story and if we've made any kind of impact towards you, or you've heard of, hey, this is real, or I've got a buddy that used them and this is real. You all sharing our story and that we exist is huge. That is how we're going to organically grow, and grow in a manner where we're reaching people that need our assistance, or reaching people that can assist us in assisting others. I think that's kind of the gist of the foundation. If you have any questions, please go on any of the posts. Facebook's the easiest one, but if you go on any YouTube channel, I don't think you can comment on podcasts, but YouTube channel, and our Facebook, and even our Instagram, and just ask us questions, and I'll just kind of use that feed to answer any questions. Also, we've got 3 other podcasts that have aired that are absolutely phenomenal. Jared and I twice now have talked. First time was really top level about being a paramedic, and then we dived into the peer network, and then Justin Miller and his powerful talk about PTSI, post traumatic stress injury, and there's a wonderful photo of a moment that really impacted Justin, and he and I have talked about that moment several times. And then talked with John Castle and his book John 15:13, and John, same thing, just a beautiful human being. So we're going to start reaching out to some other people. I want to talk with, for example, John's wife, and get her story on whenever he was overseas. How did that impact her, and if she had any advice for service members that are being deployed. We've been seeing support from the 45th Infantry, and so maybe we can get any of those folks on. If you're listening to this and you'd like to share your story, or interested in, hey, I run a podcast, let's talk. All ears. Other than that, thank you guys so very, very much. I hope I answered the majority of the questions. If not, let me know. And I really hope that you take the time and check out our website, ask questions, learn about us. And if you feel like I'm missing a gap somewhere, let me know. I'm all ears, because I want to help us grow. That way we can help our first responders. And again, it's all volunteer based. I didn't talk about our board. So in December, we're going to be meeting once a month. And in December, so far we have 4 other people besides me. So I'm technically the executive director and the president of the board. And then I've got Laura Gorman is the secretary, and then Emily Ward is the treasurer. And then we've got several others, young lady named Allison, and then Sierra are the executive board. And then we've got an advisory board, and the advisory board are all first responders. So Other than Sierra, the executive board, we all have some form of a tie or just a commitment to first responders. But the advisory are first responders, and that's kind of a criteria that we're going to be setting in December. Is you have to be an active first responder to be on the advisory board. Then the whole idea is that if we're fundraising for, let's say, tourniquets, we're going to make sure the advisory board, the ones in the field doing it, say, yep, that's a needed tool. Or they may say, hey, tourniquets are great, but the bolo, which is coming out, that's a more useful tool. Okay, let's fundraise and see if we can do that. That way we can always make sure that the people in the know are guiding us. I'm going to go run a business. They're going to tell me what direction to point that business towards with regards to where we're putting the money for the foundation. Again, thank you for listening every Friday at 8. And Jared and I talked earlier today. He's got a lot of exciting ones coming through, especially around peer support network and how to get more resources on the mental health side. Saw some huge wins this week on mental health for police and first responders. Florida's been doing some fantastic work down there. Other than that, guys, if you don't see me, have a Merry Christmas. Really appreciate all y'all spending time. Jared's going to be doing several podcasts over the next couple of weeks. And so if you need anything, again, the biggest thing, like, comment, and share on our Facebook page. Also our YouTube channel, subscribe on our podcast, subscribe. We're on Apple Podcast and Spotify and iHeartRadio. If find us on your typical one, take a screenshot and send it to me and say, hey, I found you on this podcast, because it's showing up all over the place. So, all right, have a great evening, everybody. This podcast is hosted by the Project Tribute Foundation. We are a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to aiding our first responders. Thank you for listening. For more information on our efforts, check us out at www.projecttribute.com. If you're a first responder that would like to share your story, contact us at projecttributefoundation@gmail.com. You can find us on various social media and podcast sites by searching the Project Tribute Foundation. 100% of donations are used to save lives, while our retail store pays for any of our operational costs. Thank you again, and please be sure to like us, follow us, and share our foundation with your friends. Stay tuned weekly as we continue to share our stories from our nation's heroes. Thank you.